All right, here we are. We're live. Welcome, Jonathan. Always great to have you. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, likewise.
Yep. I kind of kick things off today. We're going to talk about, rebranding. So as much as we love guys being dudes, we thought long and hard about this. We think the winning mindset formula is the way to go moving forward because a huge part of our podcast is about mindset. It's overcoming adversity. And it truly is like, what is that winning formula? What kind of headspace do you need to have to get to
Mhm.
where you want to go?
And
And
even our first episode, we talked about the spark, right? I think I think that's kind of alluding to the essence of what we're about and what we wanna speak about, which is the winning mindset formula and how you embody that and how we all can embody that. Any guest that we bring on the podcast, they'll be able to contribute to, what that is, and we can share that with our audience. So, I think it's a great name, a great brand, and let's dive into, how our first guest was able to contribute to that.
yeah, so I'm just gonna say instant reaction. I mean, obviously, I'm close to Tyrae. I've known Tyrae for a long time, so obviously I'm gonna talk him up. But honestly, what a hell of a way to kick off having guests here. Tyrae is the epitome of the winning mindset formula. I was blown away by, some of his personal stories, some of his struggles, how he got to where he is in life, what drives him, what fuels him. Just absolutely blown away. And he had so many great takeaways from his experiences. And I think everyone can, you know, use his story, as an inspiration, to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue in life.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he very much kind of to me embodies that underdog, kind of character just with his energy, his delivery, his confidence. He's very sure of himself and he's sure of like the meaning behind his story, the meaning behind his experiences and how that contributes to what he wants to do in life, where he wants to go next. You know what I mean? And what he takes away from each and every situation. So it was great having him on the podcast and just hearing, some of the stories that you guys had from your Yukon days. And
But what was your favorite one?
I would say when you guys, he said in the locker room before the Houston game,
Ah,
he said the energy was real nervous and kind of timid. And this was like the really important game where you guys, if you won, you would be bowl eligible for like the first time in however long.
yep.
And he said Dreams and Nightmares came on and he just started rapping the lyrics and then the whole locker room got into it. And then you guys obviously went out there and won the game. So I think that's my favorite story.
Yeah, going back to that, so Tyree mentioned 2010 was the last time UConn had gone to a bowl game. Before that, it was the Fiesta Bowl, so it was the first time they had ever been invited to a I think it's a New Year's Six bowl. So like that's usually a pretty big one. And they played a pretty high powered Oklahoma team that year. It didn't go their way, obviously. I mean, Oklahoma was really freaking good that year. Oklahoma ended up winning, pretty favorably. But it really that game kind of put UConn on the map. But then it was a quick decline. So Randy Edsall, who ultimately ended up being my coach at UConn, he was the head coach at UConn back in 2010, ended up leaving to go to, he used it as, you can kind of say he used it as a stepping stone, maybe. Ended up going to Maryland. Paul Pasqualoni takes over. Immediately, UConn starts losing and getting to this huge downfall. Pasqualoni's last year, he was, Tyrae mentioned Pasqualoni was the guy that recruited him. Pasqualoni got fired with, I think, 3 games left in the season. So UConn, it is clear that UConn's in a rebuild. So 2013, which was Pascaloni's last year, awful start, man. They started 0-9, ended up winning their last three with their interim head coach. But then 2014, my coach, Coach Diaco, gets in there. Um, the first year wasn't good, man. They went 2-10, and then 2015, there was definitely something different about the energy in the locker room. It's year two with Diaco, year two with Bayless as your strength coach. Things are definitely changing, for the better. Started out pretty hot. And this is gonna sound funny, but we started out 2-0, and people were stoked that we were 2-0 because all UConn knew those years after 2010 was just losing. Like they never had a 2-0 start since those years with Edsel. So that was big for us. And then, going into that Houston game, obviously Tyrae had mentioned just how much tension there was and, what was at stake. It's like you have an undefeated team that's ranked number 13, probably going to finish the year in the top 10, which they ultimately did after they won their New Year's Six Bowl. And, you have us at that point in time. We're 5-5, just one game away from bowl eligibility for the first time since what they call at UConn the glory days. And we made it to that bowl game and put UConn back on the map. Of course, there was another quick downfall after that. But Jim Mora this past year has definitely put UConn back on the map as they went to another bowl game for the first time since we went in 2015.
I mean, hey, you gotta take those wins when you can get them, right? Especially if you're coming off of, that negative history, being a losing program for however many years in a row. You know, it's one step at a time to kinda change that culture and to start winning those bowl games and getting to the bowl games. So, that's pretty cool that you were a part of that first game in a while for that program.
Absolutely.
Well,
And going back to Tyrae, just his story alone to get to UConn. I mean, he's obviously super undersized in high school. I think he said he was 140. Did he say he was 140 going into his senior year?
no, not his senior year. He said he was 140 going into junior year,
And then he
and th
bulked up to 175.
yeah, then he bulked up to 175. But what stood out to me was just all the injuries that he had. He
Mhm.
had the bad concussion. He said he broke his forearm.
Yep. Broke his forearm. And then I think the worst one of all of them was his senior year, that labor, because he showed out at the camps that summer. He showed out at the camps. He said he had offers at Holy Cross, Bryant, Sacred Heart, some pretty good schools. I mean, these are all FCS programs, very respectable programs in the country. And as soon as they found out he had the injury, they freaking pulled their offers. And then anyone who had given him a preferred walk on pulled his preferred walk ons. Besides UConn, UConn honored his preferred walk on slot that they gave him. Pascaloni honored that. And I really like that Tyrae stuck to his guns. And, at the end of the day, these schools are coming back after he decides to play on the labrum and have a hell of a season. Opened up with 19 tackles on opening day, almost setting the Massachusetts state record for tackles in a game. By the way, Jonathan, the most tackles I had in the game in Massachusetts high school was probably 4. So not even freaking close to what Tyrae did that day,
Damn.
but had what sounded like just a tremendous season. And, for him to turn down scholarships to walk on at a school that stayed loyal to him, I mean, that says a lot. And we
Yeah.
do tend to see that in sports. And Jonathan, I know you're a big basketball guy. Do you know the story of like behind John Morant going to Murray State?
I don't, but I do know there's another one with Spencer Dinwiddie who
Hmm.
went to Colorado,
Can you
and
tell
he
us more
said
about that?
yeah, he was a guy who similar situation, he was talented, he was on some radars, but he just kinda made the decision that, "I'm gonna go to Colorado where they love me versus, go to Kentucky where I'm gonna be the 2nd guy." You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Or I'm gonna be the 6th man at this program, or I'm gonna have to earn my spot. But if I choose the place that's really for me, I'm gonna be in a better situation to succeed. So, is that kinda the situation with John Morant?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say there's some similarities. So with John Morant, Murray State was apparently the first school to ever offer him. And so he committed early on. Murray State's in the OVC, by the way. That was EKU's conference, just for reference there. So very familiar with Murray State. But I like that. I mean, he stuck with his guns. That was his first choice there. He said, "Hey, these guys saw potential. They saw talent in me before anyone else did. So, I'm going to show loyalty to them. And, once I commit, because oftentimes we see people decommit and then commit to another school. It happens all the time. But John Morant stuck with Murray State, had a hell of a career at Murray State, and then ended up being selected in the first round.
Oh, yeah, he was a first round draft pick. I don't remember what pick he was, but and I kinda remember that year. I remember hearing his name because I used to follow college basketball
Mhm.
pretty closely, and I remember kinda seeing him shooting up the power rankings,
Yeah,
and, like, all the mock drafts and all that, and then but even then, I thought he'd be a nice player, but I don't think anyone knew he'd be, like, what he is today. He's
dude, he lit EKU up. I will never forget it. So we never really had like huge attendances at the
did you
basketball games.
did you go to the game?
So
Did you see John Morant?
I went to the game at Eastern Kentucky because it was a sold out crowd because everyone was like, dude, John Morant's gonna be there. Plays for Murray State. I'm like, who the hell is John Morant? They're like, he's projected to go in the first round of the NBA draft. I'm like, oh shit. Well, okay, I'll go to the game tonight. Dude, he was lights out. He was a one man wrecking crew. I I I think I blinked and he already had like 15 points.
Oh, yeah.
He
He's
single
different.
handedly destroyed our basketball team.
Mhm. His athleticism is, like, off the charts. It's really crazy.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we got way off there. Going back to Tyrae. So despite Pascaloni being fired, despite him losing that preferred walk on opportunity, I really like, the kind of gutsiness for Tyrae to say, hey, I know there's a coaching change. I know I don't have my preferred walk on anymore, but out of respect for UConn, who showed me respect, didn't withdraw that offer when I got injured. I'm still gonna go out there and I'm obviously, I'm freaking Tyrae Sims. I'm gonna go out there and make this fucking team. You know, I'm not gonna go the preferred walk-on route. I'm gonna go your traditional walk-on route where, hey, I have to fucking try out to actually make the team. There is no guarantee that I will have a roster spot here. And he went out there and did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Even hearing the story he told about how, his coach in high school kinda knew how to motivate him and was saying, when the coaches and stuff were showing up to see his cousin, his coach was like, "Hey, they're not here to see you. They're here to see, your cousin play. How does that make you feel?" Just hearing his response to that is crazy. From that young of an age to be that sure of himself and to just have that amount of poise is really crazy, you know?
And
Salute to him.
Jonathan, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about his cousin. Big Z, as we called him. I first met this guy at a UMass prospect camp. And oh my God, one of the biggest human beings I've ever met. And despite his size, he was one of the quickest offensive tackles I've ever seen. His ability to kick set, his ability to flat set, his vertical set was amazing. This guy was like, I'm surprised he didn't have more offers. And he actually almost ended up going to Worcester Academy with me because he ended up deciding to go do the prep route. So I ended up reconnecting with him at Worcester Academy because he had committed there. I think something happened with the financials for him, so he had to go to a different prep school. But he balled out there. Ended up going to UMaine, a very respectable program in the CAA. But so yeah, basically, I I completely understand why. I completely understand why all these coaches were going to see Big Z. And I love that Tyrae used that as motivation. I love that his coaches use that to motivate him. It's like, hey man, guess who's coming today? But guess who's not here to see you?
Mhm.
I
And
love
what are
that
you
shit.
gonna do about it? You
Yep.
know what I mean? And just him being able to make that decision even then of like, I'm not gonna be mad that they're not here to see me. I'm not gonna feel bad for myself or anything like that. I'm just gonna go out there and show them. And he had one crazy quote that he said. He was like, I've always, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, I've always just liked showing the people that who they think is it really isn't it, or something like that.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know, I
His
have a
cousin,
little bit of that in
his cousin
myself,
was
but
it.
like
I'm just gonna say that.
his cousin was it. There was no change in minds on that one. But
Yes. But he definitely opened up their eyes to him.
mhm. It's
Obviously
like a
they're watching.
never say die attitude. You know, it's like that never say die attitude, you know. If people write you off, you know, you make the choice to either accept it or you show them that they made a mistake, you know.
No, absolutely. And just like Gino, Tyrae did not write back.
He did not write back. That's for sure. Geno Smith, Pro Bowler, went from
First,
being a roster bubble guy to Pro Bowler,
you know, yeah, I mean, he was labeled as a draft bust for the longest time. Yeah, he floated around in the NFL for a bit, going from roster to roster. What a hell of a story. You see this with so many people. Obviously, Tyree's not the only one. Geno Smith's not the only one. You see this everywhere. I think the most famous example that everyone tells you in high school is Michael Michael Jordan being cut by his high school basketball coach.
which I find hard to believe.
Yeah, it's like,
Like I don't know that whole story, but I'm just like, how? You know? Like, how did he get cut?
but the awesome thing
That
is,
must have been like a personal thing, like a there must have been a personal reason behind it. It couldn't have been a skill thing. Couldn't have been a talent thing. Maybe it
honestly, who
was though.
knows? Who knows? But when people doubt you, like when people doubt Tyre, that's just more fuel to the fire.
Mhm. What is that
And
called? What is that called? You
like
know, like
resiliency.
resiliency? But it's
Yeah.
like not everyone has that. You
No,
know what I mean? Like some people are just kinda expected to succeed, or some people, like, are given the circumstances to where it's easier for them to succeed, and then you have your people that, like, always have to get it, you know, just off the strength. You
they
know
have
what
to
I
do it the
mean? Like,
hard way.
yeah, they have to do it the hard way, like, I'm just wondering what is that called, that specific trait of, like, if you write a person off, or if you tell someone they can't do something, you're just basically ensuring that they do it because 'cause they're that determined, you know what I
No,
mean?
absolutely.
But it's a crazy, crazy ability, I think, for people. I would almost say it's a skill. Wouldn't you say it's a skill?
No, it definitely is. I mean, so let's be real. Like most people, they will fold under pressure. Like if people are telling them they can't do it, then they're like, you know what, you're right. Everyone's doubting me. I'm just gonna cave in, put my head down, and just go through the rest of my life like this. You know,
Yep.
a lot of people, it takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of courage to be resilient. To tell people like, hey, you're wrong. I'm gonna show you. And basically, Tyre basically pulling a Muhammad Ali. I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Mm.
He people are telling him, hey, you're too small, or hey, you're injury prone. But you know what? Just just like Gino, man, they wrote him off, but Tyre did not write back.
He did not write back.
And he ended up
That's
getting
so
to
powerful.
UConn. Yep. Ended up getting to UConn and just brought such a powerful energy to the team. Brought a positive attitude. He was the sign of consistency, especially when things are getting tough, especially during, these really hard off-season workouts. This guy's the energizer buddy. He's going to get you going. He's going to get you motivated. He's the same person every day. He's not going to cave when the coaches are telling him like, "Hey, you're doing very shitty today. You don't belong here." He's like, "No, I do belong." And he proved that he belonged.
You know what's crazy? What's the craziest thing about it? Is this is the guy that has the most pressure on him, right? Like, this is the guy who came from Worcester, Mass,
Mhm.
and he's bringing that energy to the team. He's bringing that energy to guys that are supposedly more talented, right? Or they
Yeah.
were recruited. They were given scholarships. He's the guy that who's supposed to be under the most pressure to stay on the team, to have a place on the team, you know what I mean? But he's the one bringing the energy. It's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
like you kinda gotta think about that, like, how can that be?
You got to think. We have people. So at UConn, we had people from St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the powerhouses in high school football for the country. It's a huge powerhouse in Florida. This is where the Osas went. So we have people from St. Thomas Aquinas. We have people from Xavier, which is a huge powerhouse in Connecticut. It's one of those private schools. They usually generate a ton of Division One talent. To put it in perspective, this is where Tim Boyle went to high school. This is also where we referred to Graham Stewart in our last episode when Tyrae ended up standing up for Jason Thompson
Yep.
when he got in a little scuffle with Graham Stewart. Graham Stewart was a phenomenal player that went to this high school as well. And Graham ended up, out of this high school, ended up going to the University of Florida, where he eventually transferred to UConn. But just goes to show you, like, all these schools that they're recruiting people that generate tons of talent. Meanwhile, you have Tyrae coming from Burncoat, and besides him and Big Z, I mean, not a lot of people make it out of Burncoat. Like a lot of these like Worcester public schools, they get overlooked. They get overlooked by people that are recruiting. Tyrae mentioned, these inner city schools, and like he mentioned like being at 175 at an inner city school, that's gonna make him stand out because, oftentimes they're overlooked. They don't have the most talent. They don't have the size.
What did you think of when he talked about going through loss and he said that there's literally people that he loved that couldn't do what he has the opportunity to do or something along those lines? What do you think about that? Because I haven't really gone through that deep of a loss as far as, like, losing anyone close to me when I was younger.
That struck a nerve with me, man. As I mentioned when we were talking with him, like it made me feel guilty because I'm thinking like, how many times did I wake up and maybe take a day for granted? That's something I shouldn't have done. I should never take a single day for granted. I should never take a single opportunity for granted. I should never squander anything that's in front of me because again, there are people that were close to him, people that he knew that maybe had these opportunities, but they're no longer here to go out there and chase 'em.
Mhm.
And it's like, not every day is given, man. We can't waste it. We can't waste our time here. We have to go out there and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Conor McGregor had a great quote on that. It was, I don't know if it was laziness. He said, "Your laziness is an insult to the people that believe in you," or something
Mm,
along those lines, and that's kinda like a similarity to what Tyrae was saying. It's like, you got there's people out there believing in you, seeing the potential in you. There's promises that people, not promises, but there's things that people could have achieved that were close to you that they didn't get to achieve, and you can take on that challenge, right? You can
yeah.
champion
Yep.
that, and you can go on and achieve, and you can use that as motivation. So it's really important to draw motivation from your environment, right? I mean, I don't know if that's something that everyone does. I try to do that, but that's definitely something that's a part of the winning mindset formula. You know what I mean? Like you got to have someone near and dear to you that you want to make proud, like Tyrae said. You know, he
Yeah.
is just about making people proud, the people before him proud, and the people that are no longer here proud, you know?
And I love that that fuels him, man. I love that he has a sense of purpose because of that. And that's what's driven him, all through, his recruitment to play college football. And then it's what's driving him in his rap career, which is insane. And I don't know if you want to touch on his rap career more, but it's impressive to me. I
What
I
what
I
about it?
didn't know that he actually had someone that wanted to sign him when he was a senior in high school. He had a label that wanted to sign him,
Yeah, you did say that. Um,
and I didn't know how long he had been practicing music. He pretty much been practicing music essentially his whole life, and that was something that he was doing while playing football.
yep.
And
And also performing at UConn's spring what is it?
concert, yeah, the spring
Spring
concert.
concert. That's pretty crazy.
He opened for, did he say ASAP Ferg?
Yeah, I think you said ASAP Ferg, Schoolboy Q was there.
Yep, yep.
So,
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
that's wild. Honestly.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, just to have the determination to get to that stage, and then he's gone on tour. Um, he's been in Miami the past couple of years. He's done a lot with his career, and there's big things to come for him.
Absolutely. You know, in every avenue of life, because it's just that quality about him that you can transfer to anything. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna show up and he's gonna show you who he is. He's gonna show you who he is and he's gonna leave an impression on you. And, I think that's something that is universal. A lot of successful people have that quality. A lot of winners have that quality, and a lot of leaders have that quality as well. So I expect big things from him.
No, absolutely. I can't wait to watch his success moving forward, and we can't wait to get him back on the podcast. Talk some football.
Speaking of
Probably
football, we're going to be talking pretty soon about the XFL.
XFL this weekend, man. Yeah, we'll
Yep,
definitely recap some games, and then moving on to our next guests. We haven't really had our discussion yet, but our next two guests, I'm thinking, will actually be, speaking of spring football, USFL guests. So the USFL will be starting in April. So thinking about bringing a couple guests, especially one in particular from the New Orleans Breakers. That's my lady, man. Not good. That's a few calls right there,
uh-oh, back to back, you better pick up.
back to back. Should I risk it?
I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you.
I at least gotta text back. I gotta set a good example for people that are watching.
There you go.
When your girlfriend calls you 7 times, you need. She texted me, "Why aren't you answering your phone?"
Jeez. Damn.
Hey, man, we all face obstacles in life.
Mm, that's for sure. Hey, just challenge her to a board drill. Comes down to it.
Yep. Challenge her to a board drill, or what are some other terms we could call it? We call it rodeo or circle of life, depending on which terminology you're using.
Absolutely. Anything else stand out from Tyree's episode?
I think he needs to get into like motivational speaking or just public speaking in
Mm,
general. His confidence, his ability to just speak in general, it's impressive the way he carries himself. I feel like I can listen to Tyrae talk for hours.
yeah, and it's probably even different, like, in person when you can actually feel the energy of what he's saying, right? Like, it's different when we're on computer screens versus, like, if you were actually listening to that story in person, it'd probably be even crazier.
No,
Just
absolutely. I mean, dude, I was about to run through the drywall listening to some of his stuff last week. It's like, yeah, man, I'm ready. Let's go.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're at 30 minutes. Let's wrap up the recap episode and we'll be back.
Look forward to talking some more football in our next episode.
Absolutely. We got XFL, we've got USFL starting up soon, so we'll be doing
Bring
more
on
of the
some guests for USFL. Absolutely.
yeah, we'll be bringing on guests and then we'll just be talking more football, getting some different perspective, outside of just the NFL,
Yep. Yep.
covering some different athletes. I'm excited to see all the different kind of athletes that are in the other leagues and if they're able to find success. So, that'll be interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Till next time,
Till next time.
signing off.